Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to 372 Pages We'll Never Get Back. This is Michael J. Nelson, and with me, as always, is Connor Listoka. How are you, Connor?
I'm excellent, Mike. I've had a exciting week. Playoff baseball's in full swing.
Yes, it is. You take no interest in that, I assume? Let's go with that premise. Wait a minute, what?
I actually went to the first two Nationals home games, which were incredibly exciting, and then the two away games were also nail-biters. They were down to the last pitch. They were dramatic home runs. They were the type of thing that unites the city, and I watched them with my wife and brother and sister and my parents. It was really, really great moments, but there was nobody there comparing it to Perfect Strangers or Kroll as these dramatic things unfolded, and that was it really was.
There's no way. There's no way to frame it. How do you even figure out how to feel about it if there isn't that there?
I saw a lot of people calling them classic moments, but to me, it's impossible to make that distinction without any disposable pop culture comparisons.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry you had to endure drama and ups and downs without any way to understand it. Let's explain who we are. I am Michael J. Nelson. We said our names, but we are Connor and I have worked at Riff Tracks together for many, many years.
A long time.
Yeah, a long time. And Connor said, hey, we spend a lot of our time looking at really, really terrible movies. How about we take a break from that and we read a book that we know we'll hate? And and so that's what this podcast is about. And that book is, go ahead, Connor, explain the book. Maybe explain the plot to this point.
Sure. You're using words like book and plot, Mike. And if you've been listening with this, you know that those are generous terms, but the book is Ready Player One, and the author is Ernie Klein to his friends. And it's soon to be made into a movie by Steven Spielberg. We're tracking that. That's only about 5 months away at this point in time. But the plot is a boy is hunting a big virtual Easter egg in order to win billions of dollars. And he does this by following clues that an eccentric billionaire has laid out. And those clues have so far mostly involved either memorizing movies to the word or being really good at video games. So it's promised as a holy grail of pop culture, and so far it's been mostly about playing a couple video games.
Well, not only that, though, I would say that there's a lot of color and world building in that he describes several bowling alleys and video game parlors where one would play these classic video games. So let's not sell them short.
The cheese baking onto the pan and the pizza joints that he discusses in such just vivid detail.
Yes, which he describes over and over. But all right, so when we last left our hero, Wade
Watts.
Yes, where was he?
So we last left him. He had discovered, I guess, a gate or a key. He did one more to go, but he was about to be visited by one of the members of the High Five, Shoto, who was one of the Japanese samurai, I guess the press was calling them. And he was going to visit with Shoto after there had been some potentially bad news, which is that Daito, Shoto's older brother, had gone missing off of the leaderboard. Yeah,
and his avatar was, I guess, we learned that his avatar was no longer there. His avatar had died. I guess avatars can die in the fiction of this world. We're still not clear on what that means, but I guess you just lose your points or something.
You lose your points and your objects and go back to level 1. That was what they told us. So yeah, he saw his points disappear and figured that must be what happened. So he invited Shoto over to his house, and Shoto shows up in black mourning robes. His face bore the same inconsolable expression that he recognized from his video chat. So he knows that something is not good, but he greets him with a respectful bow.
Yes.
And then he stretches out his palm, which is a gesture that he recognized from the time we'd spent questing together. Grinning, he reached out and slipped me some skin. So within a page of this, we're going to learn that Shoto's brother Daito did not die just as an avatar. He was actually murdered by the IOI. He was thrown off the 43rd floor of his apartment building. And yet, as he shows up, he's still grinning as Wade offers him the cross culture high five gesture.
Yes. So his brother has been murdered. And a scant couple sentences before that, before we learn this information, we learn that Shoto is also a big Family Ties fan.
He is, yes.
Because when he comes into our hero's safe room, it has been built up to look like the room in Family Ties, the classic 80s sitcom. And he nodded his silent approval on being shown that.
So I thought, one, that is a giant assumption to make, that it is a silent approval nod and not like a you dipshit kind of nod. Like, you really did this. Like,
yeah, this might be the unreliable narrator here. This is the he's actually the guy who's going, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I think he really liked the room is the response.
It reminded me a lot of when the Twitter character Dad Boner he was a great unreliable narrator, because he would be doing these terrible things, and he'd be talking to the HR woman from his office, and he would be like, I saw the head honcho, my boss, like, I knew that he wanted to chime in and pound the beers with me, but he played it cool type of thing.
Right. Now look, we will go in deeply into the horrible death of Daito. But before that, we have a little department to cover, and that is real or fanfic. Yes, indeed, it's time for fanfic or real fic. This is where we challenge one another and the audience to figure out whether we're reading from the Ernest Cline book, from the text, or whether it's extra textual, that is, outside the canon. Connor,
head canon, baby.
Yeah. Do you have examples for us today?
I do. Let's get right to them. The first one starts off like this. Several of my older hacked-together rigs were still resting comfortably. The early days of Oasis rigs were with cabling. Eventually, someone figured out how to have the wireless rigs with minimal delay in the movement registering on the system. For the rig I was digging out, it had been with me during a lot of online battling, from Grand Theft Auto to Half-Life, from Need for Speed to the latest iteration of the Forza franchise. Zombians, aliens, mutants, killer robots, mechs. This rig had controlled most of the games I'd played in the Oasis. The battle rig was a box the size of an old iPad with several buttons on top of it. It was designed to sit on my lap while being connected physically via USB 11 cable to my computer.
All right. Look, we'll wait till the end to render final judgment, but I think I have made my choice on that one. Let's how many more examples do you have?
I've got one more, but I'd just like to point out that was 6 sentences and 6 rigs.
All right, that's going to feed into my answer. All right,
here's the next one.
Number 2.
Smooth move, X-Lax, I heard Artemis say. Just let us know if you need any help, ZH said. Wave your hands or something, and we'll feed you the next line. I nodded and gave a thumbs up, but I didn't think I was going to need much help. Over the past 6 years, I'd watched Holy Grail exactly 157 times. I knew every word by heart. So that's Monty Python and the Holy Grail, obviously.
Yeah.
From the
Okay, so
memorized it, if you can believe it.
Again, so these quotes could either both be fake, both be real, or neither. They could, whatever combination thereof.
No rules. You just have to purely identify. There are no either or. I'm
going to say the first one with the rigs thing. I think that like Al Pacino in Godfather 3, I got out. They kept trying to pull me back in with rig mentions. I think the rig mentions have gilded the lily a little too much, and I think that was fanfic.
That was fanfic. That was Live to Tell by Codebreaker 2001.
Okay.
But yeah, that was from a story where his digital assistant is a tiger named Hobbs, which he goes on to explain is based on a comic strip that his father liked called Calvin and Hobbes.
Well, that is right on. That is not.
It was very on brand.
Man.
I think that the way that he like the voice in that part talking about his father, I thought would give it away, but the rig might have been a little heavy there.
I think the second one is also fanfic.
The second one is real.
Oh, for God's sake. Are you
I don't
kidding?
know. I don't know. He's watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which he mentioned in the list. He had watched all their shows, even the Lost episodes or something. He watched it 157 times, and he knows every word by heart. Which
man.
We only have 90 pages left, so that's something to look forward to. I think I was just flipping through, looking for my bookmarker, and that popped up, and I was like, well, I gotta jot that one down.
Oh, ouch. Oh, because stay tuned. We have more examples of this coming up. These things are building up in a way that is it's unbelievable. But all right, audience and Connor, get ready. Get your thinking caps on. Here are my examples. And I went I have to admit up front, I went a little more subtle this time.
Oh, wow.
I found, you'll understand, I just found slightly more subtle things where I thought I wanted to challenge you in ways and see if now that we've been this far into the book, can you really root out the things.
Yeah. Like the deeper cuts.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're a little bit deeper cuts, and most of them are short. This one's 3 sentences. Here we go.
Cool.
Number 1. It dumped me abruptly into a smoky underground cavern littered with bones. A split second later, a green-skinned pig man tumbled out of the chute, looking just as startled as I was. I recognized him as one of Jabba the Hutt's Gamorrean guards. I had just fallen into the rancor pit from Return of the Jedi.
Good Lord.
That is number 1. Number 1. Okay? So you want to just put a pin in that.
I've got it, yeah.
Here's number 2. Sometime later, she reached over and kissed me. It felt just like all those songs and poems promised it would. It felt wonderful, like being struck by lightning. That is number 2. See, I told you it was not going to be easy.
No, it's not.
Number 3, she had been dead in her haptic for 3 days before she was discovered. The only reason anyone noticed was because neighbors complained about the smell. So yeah, I admit it was a little. Maybe I went too crafty this week, but please, audience, and register your answers. And Connor, then we'll
all right.
We'll get to you. Number 1 to remind you was about the pig man coming out and the Gamorrean guards and
the rancor pit.
The rancor pit from Return of the Jedi. Is that real or fanfic?
The Star Wars references have tailed off a bit. We had one last week that I forgot to mention, and there was only one this week. So, but we had so many in the beginning that it does not seem off-brand. I'm going to say real.
That is false.
Damn it!
This is fanfic. I can pull the references if anyone really cares, but this one was sort of an obscure one that I just did a quick scan of. Number 2,
I guess Wade might not have said Pigman. I think he might have actually known it was the Gamorrean guard from the very beginning. So maybe that was the tell.
Yeah, I just wonder whether the yeah, you're right. But number 2 is a little more obscure. It's just sort of some clumsy prose.
Yes, it felt like all the poems and songs
and poems promised it would. It felt wonderful, like being struck by lightning.
I'm going to say, because it goes so vague and unspecific with those songs and poems, that it is not the author. He would have put in a specific reference to something terrible. I believe that's fanfic.
Oh, my friend. That is one of the last lines of the book.
No.
Decimated in this quiz. Woo!
It felt like lightning. It didn't feel like, Don't You Forget About Me was playing in his head.
I know.
Come on, you hack. You can't abandon that at the last minute.
He couldn't even come up with a reference to it. I know. It's astonishing. I think there's like another paragraph, but that is pretty much the last. It just sort of tails off, really. Yeah,
my boner thrust into the air like Judd Nelson's fist at the end of the Breakfast Club. There we go. God, I'm sick.
I know it is. It is frustrating. Number 3, she'd been dead in her haptic for 3 days before she was discovered. The only reason anyone noticed was because neighbors complained about the smell. Real fic or fanfic? Yeah.
It seems it could go either way. But I'm going to say use of haptic instead of rig points off. And the fact that so right now you've told me that he's kissing someone by the end of the book. We only have one female character in this book, so I'm going to guess that this is fanfic.
All right. You 33% correct on
All
this
right.
quiz.
Wow.
Yeah, you got that one.
Wow. All right.
That one is a prominent one when you search online.
Okay.
It's something like Lasorian. I assume another reference that I didn't know. It's titled, but he's rewriting chapter 1. I think. I think was the premise. So I had to be a little more vague, but well done at least on that one. So
thank you. That's disappointing.
Yes. So anyway, that was real fic or fanfic. So let's get back to Wade and Shoto and the death of Daito.
Yeah. So Soto walks in. He nods respectfully at the family ties set, and you'd think that the death of his brother / his only friend might be. It might be cause for him to renounce all this trivial nonsense like family ties, but no, he's nodding in silent approval. But the first thing that Wade notes is, I guess he calls up. Shoto wants him to know his true name, and so he shows him his real picture, and Wade is taken aback by this shocking development that he doesn't look anything like his Oasis avatar. He has long, unkept hair and bad skin.
I know. I thought that was a weirdly cruel thing. First of all, idiot. We have told you this from the beginning. You've known this. You do it yourself. You know that since the beginning of avatars, everyone has practiced this, and yet it becomes a shock to you when you learn that this is true. And not only that, so he gives this poor guy who is framed for suicide, is summarily tossed out of a window at 22 years old. He gives him also the indignity of going, also I was surprised that wasn't his name. Like, you described in great detail how they were named after their swords when they first came in the first time. What are you talking about?
Oh man, yeah. So he's not a smart guy, and he asks him. He's like, wait, so he didn't commit suicide? And then he goes, no, Daito did not commit seppuku, which a lot of people wrote in about this, and I was confused too. I didn't know about it, but yeah, seppuku is a specific form of killing yourself, which is it literally translates to cutting the abdomen or belly. So it's like, yeah, we know he didn't commit seppuku. They made it look like he threw himself off a building. So I don't know if that's just a weird, he didn't bother to fact check that or what was going on, but that stood out to a lot of people, me included.
Yeah, I mean, unless there is a rash of 22-year-olds with bad skin, committing seppuku, I don't know.
The acne on his belly where he had sliced from navel to sternum was gross and hairy.
Yeah, but he also got into that. It's that confusion about the avatar versus in real life, which he just cannot make sense of in a clear way. And so he was thinking that he might have killed himself because his avatar. Wasn't there some mention of that? Like, because his avatar had died, he just like gave up or committed suicide or gave up on life or something like that.
Yeah, I guess, he might just be thinking this guy's coming here because Daito died, and he just might be, he's assuming that means his avatar. He can't fathom that the people who tried to murder him 6 months ago might have, and that he gathered these people to warn them might try to murder them, have come and murdered somebody else.
But you know what? The good thing was that after this horrific description of his death, because it's doubled up because you get the description of his avatar's death where he turns into a robot or whatever. I don't know what the hell. That was just like, whatever. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they spend a lot of time. He makes them rewatch this thing.
Yeah, he opens it up on a window, and then he lowers his head. So his avatar lowers his head so as not to see the window in his own. I didn't know what are the physics of that.
Right.
I
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
understand.
Can he still hear it playing through his thing? But yeah, it's like he shows him this video of his avatar dying, and it's supposed to be infused with drama, which is completely the person was literally thrown out a window. It's like, me coming to your funeral and being like, yeah, it's a shame that he died, but I want to show you this email from his web hosting company. They're going to be taking down his blog. since he hasn't been able to pay the bills, and treating like the dramatic moment that we need to be mournful about.
But in the end of the chapter, I thought it was a very touching moment where Tina Yothers walked in and made sort of a pulled a face to the audience, and then the 80s saxophone played. Well, it freeze framed over that. So
she was semi-transparent because it was a chat link and not a chat room, and then they sort of all looked at the camera and froze. And
family ties, yeah.
But he clarifies another thing. He says, we were not brothers, not in real life, just the Oasis. Do you understand? Because that's a very difficult concept to wrap your head around. Is that? And in fact, it was so difficult that mere paragraphs later, this is a reader wrote in to point this out. Kevin L. wrote in. He then paragraphs later he says Shoto and Daito had grown so close that they were now like brothers. So when they created their new Gunter identities, they decided that in the Oasis, they were brothers from that moment on. So it's just another patented Kleinian.
That is so Kleinian. I think
lay it out. Tell him what you told him.
I think, not to get ahead of myself, I believe that's either a dumb sentence of the week, not that one, but a similar one, or it's a runner-up. So we'll get to that. So he leaves after that respectful meeting in the rumpus room of Family Ties, and then we're into Blade Runner world. Yep,
that was exciting. And that kicks off what I thought was a very bizarre way to start a chapter, I think. But he says he's unable to be using his mouse or his hands haptically because he's sitting there eating corn chips.
I have the sentence right here, my friend. It is a runner-up for the DSOTW.
Okay.
I was eating some corn chips at the time, so I was using voice commands to operate the image analysis software, which reminded him of Blade Runner then. Yes. I don't recall the character mowing down a bag of corn chips, but I don't know. I haven't seen it in many years, and maybe that's in the director's cut, which I didn't see.
Sure, right. So, yeah, but it's the second specific reference to corn chips as a snack, and I guess that's just avoiding using the brand name of Fritos, or maybe they're the Trader Joe's brand, which are they hold up compared to the name brand. I'd put my rep on the line for the TJ's brand.
I'm guessing, though, that what he's really hiding is that he's eating a Frito pie with his hands, and he just doesn't want to get into the specifics of that. It's just covered with gravy and chili and cheese and onions.
He's going walking taco on his crazy round treadmill so he can not be fraudulent about the walking part. But yeah, so Blade Runner, that's have you seen it?
The new one.
Oh, right? No, either one. I mean, I
saw the old one.
Came out.
I remember I think someone coerced me into watching years ago the re-release that went to kind of the big theaters, the big screen theaters.
Okay.
And I saw the director's cut, and I slept well. I slept very well.
Yeah, I watched it in college. We did a cold study where they would give you a cold and then lock you in a hotel room for 3 nights. And so just
I remember that story.
It was great. It was really good. They paid you like $900, which at the time was a godly sum. And you just sort of got to hole up there and watch, people let me know their DVDs and checked it out. So that was one I watched during that moment, and that was the only time I saw it. And I remember thinking this is the one people make a big deal about. And it was not, however, it was a DVD that it was not the director's cut, which I guess I might as well be, looking at this.
Go to hell. Yeah.
I might as well be looking at the Sistine Chapel with horse blinders on. That's a pretty much apt comparison. But I think that was an early sort of nerd thing where it's it wasn't the director's cut. So it's and then I think they released the director's cut and probably 18 other cuts. And so it's now not as inaccessible to people. So it probably has lost its appeal.
Oh, please. I mean, you just didn't get the right director's cut. But the astonishing thing about the way that he goes into it is he talks about, so he's preaching to a bunch of people here with this pop culture tribute, as we learn that it is, who could not have missed a Blade Runner reference if you could put tape over their mouth and tie them up and hog tie that they'd still know the Blade Runner reference and be able to quote everything about it. So he references the Blade Runner thing, and then following doing that as a plot point, there are like 3 pages of descriptions of Blade Runner. It's like, what is this backfilling this thing? Like, yes, obviously. So I just wonder, does that make everyone happy to have the thing that they know inside and out just re-described to them in different ways? I don't get that as a technique.
Right, because it wasn't a clue that any person could read and think that they were going to be talking about Blade Runner. Even that last one was like, maybe you would have sussed out that was about that Captain Crunch hacking whistle. Maybe. But this one is just prove your best by taking the test or something. So there's no way that you would ever be like, oh, well, he's talking about this Android test in Blade Runner. It only comes up because he's using a voice-controlled scanner to analyze a photograph, and he essentially says, using a voice-controlled scanner to analyze a photograph reminds me of a scene in Blade Runner where they use a voice-controld scanner to analyze a photograph.
I think you just quoted that sentence actually literally, too. I'm not kidding. That was another one that stood out to me. It was like, God in heaven.
But then a few paragraphs later, he says, that made me think of origami, which reminded me of another moment from Blade Runner. So
I know. Yes. That was crazy. And so you got those moments. So that should be setting the fans of Blade Runner's pulse running, right? But no, then he just stops and describes what Blade Runner is.
Yeah, and I guess that's what looped in the millions, the non-nerds who read the book and made it a hit. But yeah, when you said, does it make them happy? I was thinking later on they put him in prison cell 42G again. So it's like the third 42 Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. And it's 220 pages into the book. And yeah, I just wondered, are you still supposed to get a little thrill out of that because he's quoting something popular that It was very, very weird.
Yeah.
Whatever limited appeal it had, which I think we've established for us has been very limited, has to have been expended by this point in time. It's like Austin Powers' "Yeah, Baby" in the third movie. It's just like, there we go, tick the box.
Right. And so then he gets the clue from the wrapper and the thing, and it's the Blade Runner thing. So he goes to a building from Blade Runner, which Halliday has built into, well, actually other programmers. It's a drag and drop building that you can put into any world. So it exists everywhere, right? And then he re-explains.
It's like Solitaire on Windows. It comes with every system.
Yeah, and he re-explains how that works, how you can just drag and drop a thing. And so hundreds of them are all over the planet. But he goes to one to find the clue, right?
Yeah. But I think you'll be interested to know that as he's approaching this planet, he lets us know that he's seen Blade Runner over 4 times and has memorized every frame of the film and every line of dialogue. So that puts it into some lofty company, which Monty Python, as we've established, War Games, pretty much everything he's seen, he has memorized and seen at least 50 times.
Yeah, and there was even before that, there was a throwaway about some anime that he had seen every single episode. And we're not even to the Rush stuff yet, so we'll get there. But yeah,
Sure.
It's stacking up where, again, time is warped in some way that it cannot be reconciled. It's impossible.
Right. So despite having seen it 4 times and memorized every line, he calls up the film to just review it just in case. But then he gets to the building. I don't remember what it's called, but there's going to be guards there and stuff because it's accurate,
right,
in terms of the movie. But fortunately, the guards' bullets ping harmlessly off his armor, and he never runs out of ammo because every time that he does run out of ammo, new bullets are just teleported into his gun. And he notes that his bullet bill this month is going to be huge. That's a concern when your buddy has just been thrown off of a roof. You're going to be nervous about your bullet bill being high.
Right, for the bullet bill for your avatar within. Yes. Yeah.
But it's just so there's hundreds and thousands of these buildings everywhere. So he knows he's not going to encounter the bad guys. The villain's bullets ping harmlessly off him, and he has infinite bullets. So we've really set the stakes high here for a really dramatic moment where he's invulnerable and will never run out of ammo, and the bad guys aren't going to show up. It's really just it's quality stuff. I was on the edge of my seat.
Once again, his ability to drain the bloodless life out of any tiny bit of drama that he may have had, he makes sure to do up front. Which I love that he also said that, as he mentions parenthetically, like, so I pulled the Vonnegut. What is it? The Vonnegut? Is that his ship?
Sure. Yes,
He pulls that up front, and then is like, yeah, but magic's not allowed here. Oh, for God's sake! So he can't shrink it into a little tiny car, though that doesn't matter because he has all these other things on it. So it's just like, what are you picturing in your head? I'm going to shrink it, aren't I? I can't. Like, I don't get what is the thrill of that? Dude?
Right. He mentioned that he could shrink it earlier to diffuse the tension of that scene. So if he hadn't mentioned that at all, we would not have expected him to be able to do that. It was very curious, especially since he stays on that planet for all of 3 pages and moves on. But there is some stakes there, Mike. There is a threat looming when he leaves the car parked.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, so what is actually, it's not in my notes. What is the thing that he gets out of it? What does he get when he goes into the building?
The test that he's passing?
Yeah.
It was the test that it was 2 persons' names that's in Blade Runner that is going to determine if you're a replicant or not.
Right. Okay. So he knows that once he does this and his score jumps up, then the IOI, the Sixers, are after him. Right.
Right.
Which gets me to one of my favorite sentences of the whole experience.
Please.
He says, quote, "The next 10 minutes played out like the climax of a John Woo movie." And so I stopped reading there and I was like, okay, I got it. I know John Woo. I'm going to imagine that. Connor, why don't you pick one? Do you have a John Woo movie that you want to imagine?
Yeah. So it played out like the climax of Face Off.
Face Off.
So you've got Pollux and Castor and Pollux Troy, and
they're
shooting each other with
lots of
slow motion trench coats, and there's
so
some
you picture that for the next 10 minutes. I'm going to go with Mission Impossible 2. I'm going to picture that for the next 10 minutes.
So someone's probably
bullets
pulling
flying.
off a face.
Yeah, faces are being pulled off.
Sorry, I'm thinking about Face Off.
Yeah, you carry on with yours. I'll carry on with mine. And okay, and then we'll do this for 10 minutes. So if you guys could just hang on out there, and we'll pause it here. And okay, we're back. We fast forwarded there. We imagined it for 10 minutes, and all right, done. That was a really exciting scene. I enjoyed that.
It was a iconic movie from my high school, so it was fun to sort of revisit those 10 minutes of Face Off.
Same here. I mean, Mission Impossible 2, obviously ridiculous and silly, but sometimes it makes you laugh out loud just by the sheer audacity of the images. Yeah, it's bold. All right, so let's read on then. Okay, so next time it's played out like climax of a John Woo movie. Okay, we did that. One of the ones starring Chow Yun-fat, like Hard Boiled or The Killer. Son of a bitch! Now. What are you doing to us? Yeah. What?
You pictured that movie for?
That's frustrating.
We should not be taking it one sentence at a time.
No, we should really not stop in the middle and listen to it. Sometimes he sneaks up behind you and gives you those extra instructions. I should read to the end of a paragraph.
Well, whatever. Picturing Face Off is not time misspent.
Oh, it was pleasant all around. Yeah.
So that is just sort of another like the Blade Runner director's cut, like. No, not the Hollywood ones, folks.
Right.
The ones that you had to get at the weird VHS store. Blockbuster probably didn't have them.
Right.
God.
I will ask this question too. Was this the first instance of him, because he talks about the Anorak Almanac? Is that right? Yeah. Where he used biblical headings on it. AA23:234. I noticed that just used in the middle, like where he'd never. I mean, he's obviously made semi-explicit references to it being his Bible and everything, but I just thought that was rather audacious of him to suddenly include that as, okay, all right. So if you want to look it up yourself.
He later quotes passages from there that are like, going outside is highly overrated. That's the chapter.
Yes. That was a chapter heading. That's right.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like something that he set up in order to like hopefully later publish that actual almanac as like the Harry Potter like Fantastic Beasts, or publishing those books mentioned within the book type of thing.
100%. That's gross. True. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, he approaches the test, which isn't really a test. It extends a thin robotic arm on a circular device that looked like a retinal scanner. and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't look like a retinal scanner. It is a retinal scanner. So it scans his retina, and then he passes, or it opens up, or he inserts the key, and that takes him into another void game within a game.
And this game is now. This is one I was not familiar with at all.
No, never heard of it. I watched some footage on YouTube. It looked like, a game I probably would have enjoyed because it had sort of those arcade graphics. Like for a while, the arcade games were like the gold standard, and this was in the mid '80s. So like comparing that to like Nintendo graphics, it was, it looked like a Super Nintendo game, but at the time it was like, wow, but it looked like a fairly standard, like sort of Contra with a wizards and warrior kind of character at the center of it.
And this was I think sort of, I felt a little, I don't know how to say this without insulting the guy too much. It made me sad that he thought that upping the thing, this is a game called Black Dragon, right?
Yes.
And Black Dragon is just he mentions it later. It's just a, screen game. You obviously are walking through a screen, and a scrolling game. And he had played those before in this world. So I think he was trying to up the tension by saying that only this time I wasn't just playing the game, I was inside the game. We have literally spent the entire book inside a game, so this is not a new revelation. It's like it was all around me. You mean like every single second of this book?
The way you spend your waking life, right?
Yes, but I swear he thought that was like upping it in a way that would be like, huh? Ta-da!
Right. When I played Pac-Man as a game within a game, and when I played Daggerath Dungeon for game within a game, it's not like those games within a game. It is, slightly different.
It's as though I was in the game, which I am all the time. Anyway, the point is, does he beat the game? I liked as he approached it. He says, he had identified this as a reference that he was expecting. So he says, I was all prepared to pat myself on the back. It's like, you were prepared to do that because we have read 230 pages of nothing but you patting yourself on the back for learning and memorizing garbage. It's just like. Right. He says, I'd been sure of its meaning from the start. All right, it's just awful to imagine the smugness of that character being like, yep, no, a life wasted, and I am proud of that fact. And he once again did the thing that cracks me up, is that he gets the clue, and some of the clues he will talk about, like the quatrains and everything, he'll stare at for hours, days, literally, 24 hours. He'll repeat the phrase in his head. You know all of his quirks. We don't need to tell you about that by now. But then
eats corn chips.
But then the other one, eating corn chips. But then at other times, he read it and he's like, I knew immediately what it meant. And so he does that like 3 times too. So it's really, which one is it? You're staring at it for 24 hours. You have no idea. And then you're learning and watching every single anime game that ever existed.
Right. For research.
Yeah. His ability to diffuse drama is unmatched.
Right. Well, he describes the protagonist of Black Tiger, because that's the American translation, which seems very stupid because there is no Black Tiger. It's just there was a Black Dragon who's the boss, and then they call the hero Black Tiger in the American one. But they describe him as a muscular, half-naked barbarian warrior dressed in a armored thong and horned helmet. And I thoughts immediately went to whether that armored thong had several discrete openings in it, because that was something that it was not specified, but it was. I thought it was kind of important. While we're getting into the inner workings of these games.
Yes, I mean, how discreet can they be in a heavily armored thong? I guess that's the problem.
Yeah, it is 16-bit, so maybe that just a pixel or two would be what indicated those openings. Right. But yeah, so he despite it being a 3D immersive game, he plays through it with minimal difficulty. Like he describes that he wins, and then says like the only time that I died, which is again diffused before he even describes that he encountered trouble by saying I won. It wasn't an issue. And then when he wins a robot. It's going to pop up and let him pick from his choices of robots. Yeah. And he says, it appears I was going to be offered a real working recreation of whatever robot I selected. And real's an interesting choice there because he is being awarded a token, robot avatar in a game within a game.
Yeah, and he talks about sort of cycling through all of them, like he knew that this was an important thing. And so he really checks out the, whether these are a hell of a rig or not, I guess.
Right. But then, there's ones that offer all sorts of advantages. But then he discovers Leopardon from Spider-Man, and says, I'd become somewhat obsessed with the show, so I didn't care if he was the most powerful robot available. I had to have him regardless. And so he's watched the guy fight to his death as a robot. He's seen the guy murdered, and there are literally billions of dollars on stake as he nears the finish line. And yet he's making his choices not based on what offers him, the most power or the most advantages. He just kind of liked the show, so he needs to have that particular robot.
Wait a minute, does he kind of like shows? I have not been able to figure that out yet. If maybe he could include some more descriptions of that.
He was somewhat obsessed, so he didn't recreate the living room from Spider-Man. He just considered, getting a tattoo or maybe hanging up a picture of the living room in his virtual den.
So he grabs that, and then it turns into the next. Are we getting into? Let's get into Rush. Come on.
Yep. It after he respectfully reads all the programmers' names, it flashes a symbol on the screen that he immediately recognizes. And let's talk Rush. It's the symbol from Rush's classic sci-fi themed concept album 2112. Which, let's talk Rush, Mike, because we know we have some thoughts about Rush. I know you do, at least.
I do. Can I? Let's take a personal moment here and talk about my Rush. These are two absolutely true stories about Rush. Is that when I was 16 years old, a friend of mine who was a rough fella. I was a pretty good kid. A pretty rough dude who, he smoked and he drove a car that, he was a dangerous dude. He wanted to get with some girl, and so he asked me to go to a Rush concert. And now I had been to maybe 2 concerts before. I think one was at a state fair, and I think it was the Osmonds when I was like 7.
Wow.
So he made me pay for my own ticket, and he took another girl. So I was the
third wheel.
I was the wingman. No, there was another girl. So the girl.
Okay, all right.
So and that girl and I, were incredibly uncomfortable at a Rush concert. And Moving Pictures tour, this was the height of their power.
It was like a stadium show.
Oh, a huge stadium show. And so it was the whole experience was quite shocking as for the first time in my life, just dubage after dubage being passed to me. And I think I was 15, he was 16. So
wow.
It was quite shocking. And then people started lighting off bottle rockets.
Wow.
In the enclosed stadium. And so there was a bunch of, security concerns and, little fires were being started and stuff like that.
Jeez.
And all the time the band Rush, who I was not a fan of, was shrieking on stage and admonishing
like a pretty
the
good
audience
time until that moment. Yeah.
So that's my first exposure to Rush. What are your thoughts on Rush?
So I think I was a little past the time when Rush would have been something I would have listened to. I never had like an older brother who was like, "Oh, you got to listen to Rush. That's the real deal." Like no one's ever sat me down and said that. So I think the time for me to appreciate it has moved on. They played Tom Sawyer. They played Spirit on the radio on on the classic rock station that I listened to growing up. And one time I went to a Hold Steady concert, and their drummer Bobby Drake was wearing a Rush T-shirt. I assume that Rush is like, if you're a drummer, they're a drummer's band because of Neil Peart. But
he better be doing something with that gigantic rig that he's buried behind.
Yes, no kidding. He does have the hell of a rig of drummers.
Yeah.
But yeah, we put on 2112 and listened to it the other night. And
yes.
It was like a 5-minute intro instrumental, and then Geddy Lee he starts shrieking, and the vocals aren't for me. Like I think that maybe if you listen to it growing up, like it's got solos and stuff. I mean, it's sort of arena rock. But it's not. I don't think it's my cup of tea.
Yeah, well, whether it's your cup of tea or not, you're going to get a lot of it in this book. I mean,
but I wanted to talk about the one thing that was a little running joke for a while, where you're not a fan of Rush.
Oh, yeah.
At some point in time, you had like watched several Rush documentaries in the span of like a month or something, and we're like, no, they were actually really good. Like there was a
Yeah, this is not something you often hear, but I accidentally watched a Rush documentary. You're sitting I do a lot of things at the same time. I often have podcasts, TV shows, and music running while I'm writing. I'm a weird person that way, and that was just on. And I saw a documentary about them, and I was like, you know what? They seem like good chaps. The music's not for me, but I'm happy to see them stay together for so long and keep their fan base. And so I was like, yeah, I thought that was a good documentary, and I told Sean Thomason, one of our other producer writers, and Connor, and they're like, wait a minute, so you like Rush? It's like, no, I'm not. Not a fan of the band. I really like Rush documentaries. and then as fate would have it, there was another Rush documentary.
One came out.
It was just a shorter one, and I saw it. I was like, yeah, they're good guys. They seem like nice guys. So so it has become legend. I'm a huge fan of Rush documentaries, while not being a fan of their music. So
there was a DC sports broadcaster named Ken Beatrice who would do his show Sports Call, and he would read ads for Arby's, and he would always say, like, Arby's has curly fries. I don't eat curly fries, but I'm told they're very good. Which is
that's the way to sell it.
Fast food equivalent of liking Rush documentaries, but not Rush. Well, I thought just to not, we'll get back to the book, but I thought it would be fun, since you've you listened to a little Rush, you've been to a concert, to do a version of Fanfic or Reel with some Rush lyrics.
Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a shock and a surprise to me. So this is in no way prearranged. I'm happy to do that. Let's do it.
All right. So I've got 3 options for you. You have to tell if they are actual Rush lyrics or something I made up.
Okay.
Here's the first one. Net boy, net girl, send your impulse round the world. Put your message in a modem and throw it in the cyber sea.
Well, since we haven't taken the temperature of Rush yet, I'm
going
to have to say that is true. That is a Rush lyric.
It is a Rush lyric
wow.
From their song Virtuality. It was on a 90s album, Test for Echo.
Wow.
Put your message in a modem and throw it in the cyber sea.
Wow.
So I think you could probably understand if that was the sort of thing that Ernest Cline was listening to in the 90s.
Yes,
where this
indeed.
all came from. Here's number 2. I looked in the mirror today. My eyes just didn't seem so bright. I've lost a few more hairs. I think I'm going bald.
Well,
a little bit of a different theme.
Oh boy, I'm going to say that's Rush again.
That is Rush from their song I Think I'm Going Bald. I don't know what album that was on, but that's very real.
You're not accidentally listening to Rush Limbaugh, are you?
That's Geddy Lee's Diary as an arena rock song. Here's the last one. In a dog's life, a year is really more like 7, and all too soon a canine will be chasing cars in doggy heaven.
Well, Connor, I don't mean to insult you, but I'm assuming that's yours. You are not an arena rock.
That is Dog Years by Rush.
Oh, dear God.
So that's how that song starts. That was the hardest one to pick one from, because that song's lyrics are quite bad. So that was cruising a Reddit thread for most embarrassing Rush lyrics, and those were the top 3 things that they did. So yeah, not the sort of thing that's gonna pull me into the Rush universe.
Well, if you go to the movie, that's what I don't. Does Rush link up with his fans in a way? I don't know. I think this will be a lot of people's first introduction to Rush, because it plays prominently in the movie, at least in the trailer, and I assume it carries through,
right?
Because it's a major plot point. Well, you want plot point with quotes around it.
Sure, exactly. So it's Rush, the band that James Halliday has called the Holy Trinity. Not to be confused with the substantial list of trilogies that he refers to as holy trilogies. He does not have a very creative mind when it comes to describing groups of 3.
No.
So Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart are the holy trinity of rock, which has got to come as a big slap in the face to Hanson, I would say.
Wow, yeah. He's throwing future shade on them.
And so they sound like, this 2112 is essentially, cyber D&D, Planet Syrinx, a domed city of Megadon, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember being in the back seat of a car, when you're young and you're sort of imprisoned by your friends as they drive around and try to find something to do. Someone plugging in 2112 and then being told to be quiet while the intro stuff played.
Oh God!
Please, I only get out of my house for a few scant hours every week. Can they not be spent waiting for the singing to come in? Whatever's going to happen here.
So that was my experience with Fish in college. So I relate fully.
Yes.
But yeah, so he starts talking about one of the songs, and he describes it, I thought, was in a very ironic way of the song tells the story of an anonymous rebel living in the year 2112, a time when creativity and self-expression have been outlawed, which is just a nice little ironic thing, which, he's praising Rush for, singing about rebelling against that time as he goes on to list just, things people have heard of in his book. And
Right,
it's his self-expression.
exactly. Right.
It would be awful to live in that time where all people can do is just make references to disposable garbage. Wow, that would be terrible.
Yeah, instead of coming up with their own fresh takes. Oh, well.
And then he goes on to, unironically, I think on the next page, say, the city of Megadon reminded me of an old 1950s sci-fi paperback cover painting depicting the crumble and ruins of a once great technologically advanced civilization. So I think, in between his silent movies and 1940s films, he somehow found the time to read a bunch of 1950s sci-fi paperbacks in between all the gunting research.
Right. Yeah. In the, if I could just point out also in the Rush adventure, whatever it is, because it involves, finding the guitar behind the waterfall and all of that, which is, mirrors the song.
Sure.
We learn that his haptic suit is not really a hell of a rig, is it?
No, it's not living up to its performance, I guess.
So it can simulate falling and, lack of gravity and all of that. But as he tries to crawl through a waterfall, he suddenly complains it's more like being hit on the back with a bunch of sticks.
Yes.
So I think his claims of having one hell of a rig are suddenly, what happened? Did it break down? Does it need a little tune-up? What do we do with this rig?
It's a great investment. I think the thousands of dollars that obviously cost. It performs about as well as one of those Sega Genesis, the Power Glove would have performed in the 90s. They just never lived, or even Wii Tennis. It's like, well, yeah, this is not actually living up to what it's supposed to do. And I wondered how it smelled if that was the performance of the haptic suit, how badly that waterfall was smelling. It's like, wait, the waterfall is smelling like curry. This is malfunctioning too. Dear God,
my stink tower. I'm returning it to Best Buy.
So he finds the guitar behind the waterfall, and he says that he couldn't play a real guitar, but on a virtual axe I could shred, which came as news to me. I guess it's sort of just another, he mastered Guitar Hero along the lines, which I guess we just have to accept at any given point that whatever he brings up, he's going to have either mastered or memorized, because why not? I mean,
yeah, I'm waiting for that moment where it's just, there'll be something from the classic 80s, and it just I would love it if it was a throwaway where he just went, I didn't see that.
Not familiar.
Yeah. Called my friend. What is that?
Yes. I had heard of it.
I wanted to see it, the Insecure people. Have you seen that new movie that everyone really? No, I want to. Thank you for telling me that.
But yeah, he finds the waterfall. He solos out to the Rush solo, and then I thought that this was pretty good. He reads the liner notes for the song Discovery, which they describe a hero finding a guitar in a room behind a waterfall. And then on the next page, he describes to play the song Discovery, which describes the hero's discovery of the guitar in a room hidden behind a waterfall. Just lay it out for us, buddy.
He goes to great lengths to describe how he had everything that Rush ever did. Obviously, he doesn't explicitly say, I tried to catch him on it. He doesn't say that he listened to everything. He had it all. So it's kind of like it was on his iPod or whatever. Maybe he didn't get around to doing it. But he had concert footage, bootlegs, every album, every book. And then he had all side projects and all unauthorized biographies.
Oh, man.
Seems like an odd.
Wow.
Are they there for reference? Are you reading them? Like, look, you don't have to go with every side project.
Every side project.
Halliday may not have gone down those roads. Did Halliday explicitly say he was into the side projects?
Love Rush documentaries. Don't like Rush. The side projects. They fall somewhere in between.
Right.
But yeah, so he finds this secret guitar and he plays the thing, which gives him a clue that you cannot do this alone. And he suspects that the IOI has not found this key bit of information because they would not have been good enough gunters to play the guitar solo. So he decides he's going to. He has a plan. He formulates a plan, and he says, like any classic video game, the hunt had simply reached a new, more difficult level.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the book ends. The book ends. That section of the book ends, and that's where it has that quote about going outside is highly overrated.
Right, and then in the next chapter, he just gets captured.
Yeah,
right. That's the whole. He becomes an indentured servant to IOI.
Let me go back. That going outside is highly overrated. That sort of trite nonsense. That's the second most liked quote from this book on Goodreads.
Oh,
the first one is people who live in glass houses should shut the fuck up, which is part of his screed against the religious Mrs. G. And the third one is it's appropriately just a song lyric that he quotes in the book. They might be giants lyric. No one in the world gets what they want, and that is beautiful. That's the third most liked quote from his book.
Wow. The glass houses one, I don't know why this made me think of this, but in the 80s, there was a lot of comedians with sweaters on who would play guitars, and they would do like a part of their song parody, and then they would throw in little one-liner. That sounds like one of those where they stopped singing like a sturgeon, and then they went, people in glass houses should shut the fuck up. Touch for the, it's just such a terrible throwaway line.
Weird little applause line. Yeah. So that's a fun note. But yeah, he gets captured, and I guess there's a little bit of drama where you don't know that they're coming to indentured servitude him, because he leaves out some serious information here, and it seems like time has passed, but they come to get him. And my takeaway from this was that he's got a lot of rhyming bullshit installed here. He's got his war door installed.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the walls, he's got a sage cage.
Yeah.
The people coming to get him are the drop cops. And then later on, when he goes to prison, the communication they install is called the ear gear. So you've got this little Dr. Seussian. They're all just obviously the first things you think of as a writer. Like, well, I don't know, what is the door that protects him? War door sounds good. I'll slug something better in later. What is the cage around his thing? The sage cage sounds good. Yep, I'll put in the real thing later on.
Yeah, and the drop cops thing, I actually had to, go back and read, was I supposed to know what this was? Because he did it as a cutesy thing, but then just turned it into one word immediately. Like, cops were dropping from the ceiling. Suddenly, the drop cops were on me. Like, wow. It is very Seussian.
But yeah, so they come to arrest him. He activates his destruct series, and then it's sort of he tries to make it into this thing that just hasn't been earned. Like so he says, I curled into a ball on the floor and closed my eyes. I started to shake involuntarily. I tried to prepare myself for what I knew was about to happen. They were going to take me outside, and it was like. I think we talked about it last time. Like if he's trying to make some sort of point about, removal from modern society and technology replacing things, it's like you haven't earned any of this.
No, he didn't get into that. He rode the bus. He was talking about looking, he was just on the bus there. He didn't roll into a ball, did he, when he had to walk to the bus?
No, exactly. And he's chosen to do all this. Like he rode the bus there without fear of them identifying him, and then he showed up and rented this place and he immediately painted the windows black so he could hump his lubed up sex doll without anyone looking at him, I guess. But yeah, it's like and he enjoys being in the Oasis. Like it's not, the pizza guy who shows up has got to be like, man, that guy's kind of weird. Like I'm making an okay living here, like delivering his pizza. So I think that is if he were good, that would be the point he would be trying to make about societal alienation. But he's not, so it just falls completely flat for me.
Yeah, that didn't it didn't have any of the tension as they were like breaking into his room. And then I assumed that again that there would be some sort of a that he had thought ahead of this thing and that he would drop down a chute and go out a door or whatever. It's like, nah, he didn't. There was nothing that he thought of. He had enough time to he installed the Sage cage just so he had another minute to put a bomb in his computer,
Right.
like, to melt his computer, which it just seems like that's a big expense, knowing that it's only going to gain you 2 or 3 minutes when you already have a titanium door.
Right. I like that he says, "Goodbye, Max," I whispered, as if it's supposed to be this sort of like, you know, his virtual assistant Max Headroom is supposed to be a character that we're attached to and like, you know, whispering a fond farewell to. And it's
Right.
like, "Oh, goodbye, Clippy," I whispered to my Microsoft Office digital assistant.
Looks like you rolled into a ball. Do you need any help with that?
Yes. Looks like you're trying to regrow your eyebrows. But yeah, so they drag him out the door in a van. He's with some other guys, a weird genderless fat guy who barfs Oreos up into his face mask, which was that's a worse mental image than Wade humping his lubed up sex doll, I think.
Right, which was also another thing that he did, sort of back explained it. Like, he was wearing some weird thing, and then he vomits, and then, oh, would you like one too? Like, come on, how did you not know about this? What?
And as he's driving away, he sort of like talks about how they're going to pretty much have his apartment fixed up and re-rented to a new guy on a waiting list by that evening, which is just another amazing thing for this post-apocalyptic society to be able to do.
It speaks really well of the economy again.
Yes,
I mean,
so.
Man.
And, but also he says that, the number of homeless people, he seems to have increased dramatically in the past 6 months, which was another detail. It's like, well, that's something interesting must be happening there to cause this major impact in these huddled masses, which is, again, gone ignored and flies in direct contrast to those people repairing the apartment within a couple of hours to get it re-inhabited after they cut through the door and blew out the window.
Well, you have to think that maybe because he is a hairless, pale creature who has been stuck in a room, he doesn't know that they're homeless. They could be part of the goods and workers being shipped into the
Yes.
city. Maybe they are productive members of the community and things have just changed. I think it's rather audacious of him to say that he knows that they're homeless.
Right. And so he shows up at the office. He's going to be rendered an indentured servant so he can pay off the debt. So I guess he's just not been paying his bill. So this will happen because this is all part of his plan. A listener, Movie Geek, pointed out, he says, luckily the Genetic Privacy Act made it illegal for IOI to sample my DNA, which he pointed out is like, oh, it's illegal for them. This faceless corporation who's clearly concerned about obeying the law as they've tossed guys out of their 43rd floor thing and blown up a trailer, killing 700 families and children. It's a good thing that it's illegal for them to sample your DNA. That is a good thing.
Right. I noted that when he gets his bracelet and ear gear on, he says he shouts a stream of profanity, which he doesn't say, so I had to fill it in again. And I assume it was Crapburger, Sapfest, Suckasses, Lamer was my guess at what when he was saying is a stream of profanity.
Suck a duck. Yes, but then my favorite part of this thing was he says that as he's progressing through this whole security checkpoint, a dude just ahead of me in line actually had a top-of-the-line miniature Sinatra Oasis console concealed inside a prosthetic testicle.
Yes, that was quite notable. Yes.
That was. And so I was like, oh, I just wondered, I didn't know what Sinatra meant. So I went looking for information on this. And I actually stumbled across another scene from the movie out on the dark web.
Get out. Like, so things are being leaked like crazy.
Yeah, it might be like a studio sort of buzz campaign or something, but I found an entire other scene from the movie, and it delves into this character's backstory. Like, he only gets one line in the book, but I think Spielberg found something, intriguing about him. So you get a lot more information about him in the movie.
Oh, wow. See, yeah. I love the way that he doesn't stop at the text. He's world building, and he's making it even more interesting.
That's why he's the best, Mike.
So cool. So did you? Yeah.
Let's.
Can we? Are we legally allowed to share this?
delete this within 48 hours, just like a ROM you download, a Nintendo ROM, and you'll be fine. But yeah, I'm willing to risk it. I think the people need to hear it.
Oh, cool. All right. So this is a
leaked scene from the
scene about
Ready Player One movie.
Yeah, the testicle implant
Yes.
of the okay
His backstory.
Cool. All right, let's roll this up here. Honey, I'm home.
Oh, thank goodness. Timmy's fever is up to 105. You were gone a long time. Was there a line at the pharmacy?
What's that? The pharmacy? Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I never made it there.
But Timmy needs his medicine.
Yeah, I know Timmy's sick, but you are not going to believe the deal I got. Huh?
What are you doing? Take that off the table.
Check it out. Top of the line, miniature Sinatra Oasis console.
You got an Oasis console implanted in your scrotum?
I got to call the guys. I mean, they're going to be so impressed.
Well, you're not calling anyone, and the guys aren't going to want to see that.
Aw.
You were supposed to get Timmy his medicine. Who sold you this thing?
I don't know, some guy in an alley.
Some guy in an alley?
I didn't catch his name.
You let a guy give you a testicle implant in an alley?
Did I say that? Of course I didn't. We went to a gas station bathroom.
How much did it cost?
Yeah, it was crazy. He asked how much money I had on me to pay for the medicine, and it was on sale for exactly that much. Said it fell off the back of one of those electric vehicles that carry goods and workers. Must have been my lucky day.
So, did he replace one or just add an extra?
I was so excited, I didn't even ask. Let me just, let me see. Yeah. Oh, yep. Looks like I got the Three Musketeers down there.
Oh, why did you need this?
Honey, please. How many times has this happened to you? You're on the go, and suddenly you need to do some light gunting.
Never.
You go to pull out your handheld Oasis console when all of a sudden the bus swerves and your console goes flying out the window and gets snatched up by some leather-clad booster gang.
Timmy's going to die. You realize that.
But with my new implant, you can activate it with just 2 discreet taps to the crotch area. You know what? It may need to charge.
I'm leaving you.
Now, honey, this shouldn't take more than 6 or 8 hours. Let me just hook up to the charging unit. Ow! Oh, hang on. I just got to adjust the boys.
I'm taking Timmy to my sister's. Don't call us.
Son of a... Oh! Yeah, had it backwards. Oh, God! That one wasn't a console. Oh! Ow! Wait. There we go. I am going to gunt so hard. Oh, wait. Hang on. Honey, do you remember my Oasis password? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is... Oh.
Drama.
Yeah, I mean, tonally, it's different than I would have imagined, but...
comic relief.
Stuff.
Like,
yeah.
in a book that sorely needs it, I guess. So
yeah.
I look forward to seeing that. I wonder if he's sort of like a major character, if that's just like a post-credit scene, or either way. It's got me excited.
Yeah, I don't know. The guy sounded great. I mean, I hope his part is expanded, and I hope he gets paid a lot of money.
Oscar nomination? You never know.
Maybe so.
It's your train to Spielberg, and it could happen. So he's at the end of the book, he's in his cell, which Lauren pointed out is measured in the metric system, which I went back and looked. They've been using the metric system the whole book.
Yeah, I noted that too. So again, another seismic change to the country that goes unmentioned, I guess.
So they either implemented it post-apocalypse, or perhaps that's what brought the whole thing on. You never know.
Right. So that's where we left him, right? He's just in there, and now he's wondering, what is he going to do?
Yeah, he's in there, and he's whatever. We're led to believe he has a plan, and he's informed the other gunters of the plan. But what that plan is going to be, I guess he's taking it down from the inside. That's what he's got to do, and he's got testicle implant guy to help him. Maybe I hope he plays a big role.
God, I hope so. God, I love that guy.
Well, yeah. Unless you got anything else, we can move on to our next feature.
I think we should get into
Let's do it.
The dumb sentence of the week.
A sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big. A sentence ends with a period. or an exclamation, or a question mark. A sentence always ends with a period, or an exclamation, or a question mark.
Okay, it is time for the dumb sentence of the week. And, man, we've never had a shortage of these. Has anything changed this week?
No, we have not had a shortage this week. This is people's favorite thing to send in, and we've got a lot, so I'm sorry we can't get to them all. But here are some of the highlights. Elizabeth F. sent in, then they ran me through a kind of human car wash, a series of machines that soaped, scrubbed, disinfected, rinsed, dried, and deloused me. And Elizabeth pointed out that this human car wash also could be identified by the much more common term, a shower.
Right. I noted that one too.
And then this one was sent in by Isaac S. and Martina F. It's describing the drop cop showing up. They were here to cut open my apartment and pull me out of it, like a chunk of Spam being removed from a can.
Also on my list. Very nice.
So they have that goes along with the hammered Play-Doh or the Aquafresh of just like weird mental images of like, okay, I guess that's how you get Spam out of a can. But is that the best way you can describe that? Like whatever, a claw toy, like from a arcade game might be better.
I mean, getting Spam out of a can is very specific. It's a chunk that is like adhered to all the walls with a jelly-like substance, and it gets
it's
sort of
one
sucked
piece
out. It's one piece,
yeah.
Right? It's very bad.
And then, so Matt M sent in this one. A couple people mentioned this one too, actually, but this was popular. As the welder stepped back, another drop cop stepped forward and used a small canister to spray some sort of freezing foam around the edge of the hole, cooling off the metal so they wouldn't burn themselves when they crawled inside, which was what they were about to do. So that's him describing for 4 pages that the cops have shown up. He's protecting himself because he knows they're about to get him, but he felt the need to tack on that's what they were about to do.
I've sometimes wondered when I read sentences like that, is that the Office's fictional Michael Scott writing each one, like, you know, where the premise is already clear and everything, but he still feels he has to add something that sounds like it's from something.
Michael Scott reads that and then looks at the camera, knowingly to emphasize the drama. Well, I've got mine. If you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I admit it was tough because all of those were good, and I felt like they were a little more obvious. I want to drill down on this. This is that's my business speak. Connor, you know that we're in business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's circle back on this. This is mine. It was from the Black Tiger description. 3 sentences, technically. Black Tiger had first been released in Japan under its original title, Buraku Doragon, Black Dragon. The game had been renamed for its American release. Yeah, see, because you were talking, it's just this thing of over-explaining it. Like, that's what we've been talking about forever.
Yeah, it's that Wikipedia writing voice where you're just, you've got a guy who thinks he's describing something important and he's using sort of dry academic language to describe it.
Yeah, you just said Black Tiger under its original title. This is this. And then you describe what it is. We understood that Buraku Doragon was Black Dragon, but it had been renamed for its American release.
Thank you, Ernest.
Yeah.
Well, here's mine. It's very similar with it's 2 sentences. It's when he's going through the indentured servitude processing. He says, even though I was using a fake name, I wondered if the contract might still be legally binding. I wasn't sure, and I didn't really care. So again, way to build that drama. That could be the kind of thing that maybe, in another work would give him the out when they discovered it or something. But he brings it up and then says he doesn't care. So,
oh, that is so utterly Kleinian.
Yeah, really.
A phrase that'll be added to my. I'm happy to have it in my vocabulary because you don't see. There's something is unique about the way that he kludges these things. It is Kleinian in a way that I haven't seen in other work.
Right. I wonder who, won the Cleveland Browns game last weekend. Oh, I don't know. Actually, I don't really care. Sorry for bringing that up as my conversation starter. I don't actually care.
Right. All right. Well, you have any things to pick up on? Any odds or ends? Odds and sods?
Yeah. Let's get them. It's so didn't mention it last week, and I mentioned it this week. There's only one Star Wars reference this week. The beta capsule that Shoto gives him reminds him of the lightsabers I owned, but lightsabers were a dime a dozen. I had over 50 in my collection.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, I know. I noted that too.
One Star Wars counted, and classic. The word classic came up 4 times. Cowboy Bebop is classic. Rush's 2112 is classic. Another classic Rush song. And then any classic video game. So we still got a lot more because there's 36 total, but only 4 this time around. But it stands out every time you notice it now if you're looking for classic.
Yeah, which brings me to this tacks right onto that. One of my things, Explorers, the movie, which he talks about, which I think is that a Joe Dante movie?
He says yes, directed in 1986 by Joe Dante. In the
is easily one of the greatest kid flicks ever made. And so here's what I noted. It's from the 80s, and yet it does not get the appellation classic 80s.
Wow.
I mean, is that like damning with faint praise? It's easily one of the greatest kid flicks ever made. It was made in the 80s, but it's not classic 80s. What?
Yeah, that's...
So it by its lack, I just have to think, he must have some problems with it. He's got a couple notebooks filled with notes about, like, if you had done this.
Yeah, he wants to corner Joe Dante at Comic-Con and grill him about like the logic of one escape scene or something. Right. Yeah, that's rough. I wouldn't want to be Joe Dante today.
That's right. Right. What else you got? I got. We glossed over it. Actually, it showed up in that extra scene. I'm glad Spielberg picked up on it too.
Huh.
Leather-clad booster gangs.
Oh yes, that was who might steal his ship while it was parked on the Blade Runner planet.
I was picturing, because I'm from that era, I was picturing like Pinky Tuscadero and Susie Quattro riding their little pink motorcycles over to state. Like, who is? So there are still leather-clad booster gangs. I feel like. If you were, we were watching like a short from the 50s and they picked up some poor kid, who was some, like, come on, give me the facts, man. You're one of them booster gangs, aren't you?
Yeah, lay off, copper.
Yeah, booster.
Yeah, there's a DC Comics guy called Booster Gold who I don't know anything about him, but I assume he's one of the lamest characters in that universe just because his name is Booster Gold. So doesn't really inspire fear that they're going to take your ship, even though you can't shrink it because it's a magic chaos zone, or isn't a who cares? Whatever. Right. They can't use magic. Yeah, that's all I got. I got the assignment if you're ready.
I have one last thing.
Ooh.
And this is, I just want, I don't know if anybody noticed this. I thought that the writing, and I'm going to introduce a conspiracy theory here now. I wish I had a theme song playing for this.
Oh. Do, 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 do.
Thank you. Yes, finally, the truth is out there. I think that when he got to the part about the being an indentured servant to the company, I think for the first time he did a little research outside of his own comfort zone.
Huh.
And so after 98% of the book being the words classic, video games, movies, computer games, Dungeons and Dragons, and gunting, suddenly someone's shrieking at him that they know that he's impecunious. And it just stuck out to me a little bit. Like, I think he looked it up and he found like 2 legal terms, indentured and impecunious.
Is that
what
I
mean? It's not
the suit with the virtual clipboard set at him, because that word stood out to me, but I was not reading on Kindle, so I didn't look it up at the moment. But I'd never seen that word before.
Yeah. It's just it's obviously a speech that he took from something, or it just to me did not have the Kleinian ring about it.
Yeah.
Like, look, we know you're in there eating corn chips and talking, but no, this was kind of legalese language with the word impecunious in it. So I'd like to just introduce that little. I think there are sections that someone maybe helped him shape or something like that.
The characters that aren't obviously, alternate versions of him are going to have to
are always under a little
consult a thesaurus for them.
Heightened scrutiny on those writing assignments for him. But that's all I got.
Nice. All right. Well, so we've only got like 90 pages of this book left. So the next assignment is read through chapter 26. That's page 326. Again, through chapter 26, page 326, and that'll be the second to last thing. We'll do that one, then we'll get to the end. I can't wait. I'm curious what's going to happen. Wonder what his plan is.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's not he's I've talked to Lauren and my mom have now finished this book, and just they have sort of just given a resigned sigh when I'm like, so anything, like it was twist anything, and they're just sort of like, it just
So it's kind of like I've always said about the Twilight Zone, which I like a lot of them, but if those were book length, you would go like, yeah, it turns out that he bought the mask from a shop,
Right.
and it's like, it doesn't turn the world upside down, but it was 22 and a half minutes,
Right,
who
exactly,
gives
yeah.
a crap,
Cool to see a celebrity on TV in a major role, like
right. But this is going to be a lot of our time spent waiting for a twist that has obviously made people who have already read it go, yeah.
So yeah, that's what you got to look forward to,
Yes,
folks, if you haven't read ahead.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
We always love that you follow along with us. It is a big,
It's so much fun.
it's a big commitment. And hey, we wouldn't do anything you wouldn't do. Wait, how does that work? You wouldn't do anything we wouldn't do. I don't know.
I wouldn't be impecunious if you were pecunious. It's something like that, I think, is the
I think you know what? I think you're pulling a Pendergast on me, and let's just end it right here. That is the end of this relationship. Anyway, thank you, folks, and we will see you next time
Thank
on
you.
372 pages we'll never get back.
Ooh, see you next time.